Hello, it's Chris from Ashmore Residential. Thank you for joining me today. Just wanted to share with you some practical tips further to some of the updates we've been getting from industry regulators and the Housing Minister, and wanted just to give you some assurance with regards to any scenarios that may crop up now or in the very near future. So I've had a number of people calling in and emailing me further to the last video update that went out on Friday with some of their concerns, and I just wanted to share some practical tips with you. Start with the very first question is that somebody's written in asking how I should market or arrange for viewings of my property whilst practicing social distancing. Now, best practice is that face-to-face meetings are avoided. If you have a vacant property, we would recommend that you could do a virtual tour of the place by using video. However, it's very important that the video footage that is taken or shared with any prospective tenants is a 100% reliable representation of what the property actually is, and if there are any defects within the property, that must also be shared, as it's very important with regards to any material consideration a tenant might be making to rent your home. Secondly, if a tenant insists on any viewing appointments, we would only recommend that it's done with social distancing practices in place, i.e. being 2 metres or more apart, and furthermore it would only be recommended if it was an empty property where there's no occupants inside, which therefore means the risk of any infection is considerably lower. Second question I've had is, what if my tenant is self-isolating and we're due to complete a gas safe inspection or repairs to the property? Now, with regards to this, a tenant has the right to refuse access, especially if they are self-isolating for an average period of around 14 days. So these rules must be respected at all times. In instances where a gas safety test is due imminently, my recommendation is to try and get it done if you can with the cooperation of your tenant, but fundamentally all correspondence must be recorded. There must be an audit trail by email with your tenant. If access is refused, you need to have all of that in writing with any reasons for access being denied, and at the same time to show any correspondence or efforts to communicate with the tenant with your gas safe engineer. Now, on that point, I'd just like to add that given the changes that were made with the rules to gas safeties back in 2018, you can now do them in advance. So for example, if you have a test that is due at some point next month or in May, given the uncertainty of the coronavirus outbreak and how long the lockdown will be in place for, if you've got vacant properties, it's okay to do them now. If your tenants will allow you to have access, you can get the test done right now, and it will be essentially added on to any valid period that you've got left, so that come the expiration date of the next safety test, it will be done as if there was no interruption. So if you've got something, for example, that needs to be tested in the month of May, if you can get it done right now, that will be great, and it will carry it over until May of next year. However, if you've got tenants that are refusing access throughout the whole time, you must demonstrate in writing that both you and the gas safe engineer have made all reasonable attempts to get access, and if it can't be given for these reasons, then that would cover off any other eventuality that may arise. Another question about essential works. Now, when it comes to things like heating, sanitation, or if a washing machine has broken down and is no longer in service, these types of items are regarded as essential works. So wherever possible, tenants will no doubt want a home that has even the basic functionality, and in almost all cases, unless again they are self-isolating, you should be able to gain access to get these, and these issues must and should be addressed at all times. Anything else that may be reported, a flickering light bulb or a leaky tap, all of these things will be regarded as non-essential items, and that can wait until a later date. Another question we've had here is my tenant has asked to end a tenancy early, and because their circumstances have changed due to the outbreak, how should I respond? Now, my recommendation is that all of these cases have to be looked upon on their own individual merits. Now, with regards to ending a tenancy early, if it can be proven that the tenant's circumstances have changed due to redundancy or loss of a job, and it's because of the coronavirus outbreak, then naturally it would be best practice that you try to end the tenancy as soon as possible and deal with things in a way that is amicable and fair to both parties. Now, another question that we've had to deal with in recent times is a landlord who contacted us to say that his tenant had asked to end the tenancy early because their circumstances had changed due to the outbreak, and how should I respond? Now, what we would do in such a situation is recommend that you should look at each and every case on its individual merits. So if it's a case whereby the tenant has lost their job, or they've been made redundant, or not covered by the government bailout scheme, which at the moment we're waiting for some detail on those who may be self-employed or freelance contractors, and they can prove that they will be unable to service their commitments, then perhaps in cases where they are sharing a tenancy with another person, that they could look to find somebody to replace them, to continue on with the tenancy if the other person who they're sharing with wishes to stay on. Equally, if the application is supported by a guarantor and the tenant hasn't suffered any form of financial loss or hardship and is still in active employment until further notice, then in essence the terms of those tenancies should still be enforced, particularly if there is a guarantor in place in order to circumvent any loss to you as a landlord for income or any other service charges that may be due under that tenancy. Another question that has come through is, I had agreed a tenancy with some prospective tenants, but now they are pulling out before they have moved in. What can I do? Again, each case needs to be looked at on its own merits. However, if it is a case whereby they might have been overseas students and therefore or people based from overseas, and travel has now been restricted into the UK and they're unable to move home, then in such a situation it would be very, very difficult to go after them and enforce the terms of the tenancy. Legally speaking, yes, it's possible, but in light of the circumstances, I think it would be very difficult. You also have to bear in mind that if perhaps somebody has been made redundant and their employers are not going to cover their costs, for example, during the uncertainty with the outbreak, then again, if they're unable to commit to it financially, it would be difficult to enforce the terms of the tenancy legally, given the extenuating circumstances. So that is all we have for now. There will be further updates, of course, and we will keep you posted on developments. Thank you very much for your attention today. Feel free to share the video with anybody who you know might be interested in it, and we'll speak to you again soon.